Last time on the program, we learned that suicide is contagious, which still sounds really stupid to say. But it's only contagious to teenagers for some reason. If you are caught having depression, which basically means showing any negative emotions whatsoever, you are violently dragged away to parts unknown. But don't worry, because our lead character has a boyfriend who loves her very much and also tells her, just don't feel things. Just don't. Just stop it. Hello, welcome back to my couch. Yes, my hair looks bad. We're walking. We're gonna read chapter 5. Kinshu is very aggressively requiring attention, so I wanted to talk about something before I got started, and then I'm gonna read the chapter real fast because I have like an hour before I need to be doing something else. But I foolishly got into an argument on the internet, and you never do that. Why do we do that? Why am I stupid? The thing I wanted to talk about is, as of the filming of this, so probably a million years from when you actually view it, there are some authors behaving badly online. I don't know if there's something in the water, but at the moment there are some authors making some life choices that are not great. And we're not going to talk about that, but one thing that did come up with all of these shenanigans is the question of, are you allowed to critique something if it's real? So both of the authors behaving badly right now, at this moment, are people who have created either poetry or essays that are about their life and their experiences, and some of those experiences are difficult experiences to live through. And so they're kind of saying, you can't critique my art because it's based off of my real life experiences that were traumatizing. And that made me think about this book, because depression is real, even though it's not being handled terribly accurately so far, and I am sort of the impression that it actually doesn't exist, and possibly these kids are being killed by something else. Anyway, but because depression and mental health issues are real, should we not be allowed to critique things like this either? I think that you can critique anything. Because if someone has chosen to not only write it down, but then sell it to you, I think at that point, like, I wouldn't come into somebody's house and find their personal diary and start critiquing that. That would not happen. But once you have written your tough life experiences down and sold it to people, then I think you're, quite frankly, open for critique. But there are some people who do think that you can't critique it if it's a real thing that happened. What do you think? Let's start a conversation down in the comments below. Because honestly, this book is so boring, it's not really starting any conversations. So far, we've been caught in a loop of main character does a few things that are not well described or even clearly important to her life. She has a sad, her boyfriend comes and they hug out the sad, and then we move on. Like, this has happened at least twice, possibly 3 times. I also haven't been commenting too much on stuff that we can do as authors, because I don't really have a huge handle on what this book is about yet. Like, I know what it's about, but I don't know what it's about. Does that make sense? It seemed like it was hitting the ground running, but actually it's not really in a hurry to get started. Are we just gonna slowly watch the main character get more and more sad until the men in the white coats come to take her away? Is that what's gonna happen? Anyway, one of the things that I might consider if I was editing this book is requesting that the author maybe flesh out a little bit of the other side things that are happening. So it's not just her and her boyfriend that are getting all the attention. So maybe some descriptions of space. You know, she ate dinner at the other chapter, and there was no description of her home whatsoever. No description of even her bedroom, which can tell you a lot about a character. And we don't need a lot. We don't need this story bogged down with endless descriptions. But just a few tidbits, like when her boyfriend climbed onto her bed, he had to kick her stuffed animal collection out of the way. Anything to give us an idea of these characters through the spaces in which they live would be helpful. As a writer, definitely consider describing spaces as a way to help get characters across. Even if that space doesn't belong to the character, their opinion of it could also get something across. And again, you don't need to go on for paragraphs and paragraphs. A few tiny details will go really far, but there's nothing in this. because her parents aren't important, her home isn't important, her school isn't important. The only things that are important to this particular author are how sad she is and how perfect her boyfriend is. Alright, that's enough rambling for me. Let's get on to chapter 5. Let's see what's happening. Okay, see, already I'm confused by the program and the men in their white coats, because right away we learn that Miller broke into Lacey's room at her, rehab school last night, and now he's in danger of being flagged, which I assume means that somebody's going to be like, he's suicidal, take him away to get his memory wiped. So, how is anyone fooled that these men in their white coats are actually coming to take children who are depressed? How is anyone fooled?
That's suspicious. That's weird.
The logistics are just confusing. That's something to think about when you're building a dystopian world. It's really tempting to just go, I want to comment on mental illness, and I will now invent a world where people who are depressed are taken away to have their memories wiped. That sounds cool, but sounding cool isn't enough. If you want to have a really properly successful dystopian, successful at doing what dystopians are kind of supposed to do, I guess you could say, which since the beginning has kind of been commentate on things in our world that we are dealing with now by taking them to an extreme. So The Hunger Games takes reality TV shows to an extreme, among other things, but we're talking about that right now. And while there are definitely times when you have to suspend your disbelief while reading The Hunger Games, you can still understand how this world functions and why the characters haven't risen up or rebelled, why the story flows the way it does, why the world is the way it is. Your dystopian doesn't need to be perfect, and it can definitely have elements that are just kind of a little bit wacky, but if the world doesn't make sense for the characters, that's a problem. I haven't even gotten past page 1 of chapter 5. I'm gonna be late for my hangout later. I would love to be shown this instead of just told. James feels responsible for my brother's death, for my safety, for Miller's safety. That's just how he is. Now, it's pretty obvious through what we've seen so far and what we've been told so far that he definitely takes on her safety as his responsibility. But we could be shown a lot more that he blames himself for her brother's death. I hadn't seen that up until this point. And we could be shown a lot more that he also finds himself responsible for Miller's safety. And now they've had a sad, so they're gonna have a cuddle. Again. Same thing every time. The character starts to get sad, her boyfriend starts to get sad, they have a cuddle. So she has a conversation with Miller, and he shares the brief story of trying to break into Lacey's room and how he freaked her out because she doesn't remember him, so he's just a strange boy climbing in through her window. So of course she freaked out. And Miller's like, I thought there was a chance she would recognize me, even though that has literally never happened before, at least as far as the book has told us. She's like, are you going to keep trying? And he's like, no, I'm giving up. There's no point. She's a completely changed person. Couldn't you start over? Meet her again. Well, now you've climbed in through her bedroom, so maybe not. But you could meet her again. You could introduce yourself. You could hang out. Just start. Most people love that first fairy tale part of a relationship anyway. Just start over. I know it's a pain to have to do that, but why is that not being considered?
Do you remember me at all?
Well, no. But don't take it personally. I don't remember what I don't remember.
You know what this means, right? We get to become best friends all over again!
And they're planning to sneak out of school again because all these kids do is not be where they're supposed to be. That's the dream. This is the wish fulfillment for any of the kids reading this book, is that they could just sneak out of school whenever they wanted, that they could be as late home as they wanted. Also, these kids can get away with whatever in class, holding full conversations, checking their phones. I don't know, I didn't go to public school, but I kind of thought that those things were generally disallowed. I don't know how they can just leave the school and no one's gonna be concerned. They've got the blanket excuse of James will just write us a note that we're all at our therapist and no one will ever check with the therapist to make sure that's where we were. There are more men with white coats around today, and they're going to leave at lunch, and no one's going to be suspicious and think that yes, these kids are definitely up to bullshit for which they need to be taken in. No, obviously, why would they? Miller is unhealthily obsessed with his previous girlfriend. Like, I get it, man, your girlfriend was stolen from you, but he, like, went to spy on her again that morning, and, sir, I know you're a teenager, and some teenagers are very emotion-driven, and you want your girlfriend back, but this is not. No. Miller believes it would be better if she had died than her going through the program and not being his girlfriend anymore. Dude. We're getting a history of how Lacey and Miller met, and I cannot express to you how much I don't care. Miller is such a red shirt who's just gonna get taken away. And then they hug. Everyone hugs. It's a group hug. We have a sad, and then we hug. Now, I'm not saying hugging is not a perfectly legitimate reaction when you've had a sad. It's a wonderful reaction. Hug your friends. But this is all they ever do. They have a sad, and then they hug. This book is getting away with something that I would very much like to get away with. And that's just having characters just talk to each other about fuck all. They're having a conversation, like, that we don't need to see. It's just a conversation about nothing. And while perhaps that is important to show that they are friends, it's like you could just say we talked for hours or something. You don't need to actually show us the boring conversation. I want to do this and get published. I want to keep all of those inane conversations that I have to delete from my work because they're boring. Why do you get to do this? Suzanne? Huh? Look how thick this book is. It's thick with nonsense. Oh no. Miller is showing signs of depression. Or he could just be upset because his girlfriend's memory has been wiped. I am not convinced that these kids who are committing suicide are not being murdered. And you will have to try very hard to convince me because this is ridiculous.
Now, I'm not saying that advice is bad, but honey, you're not special because you're sad. Not special, no, you're not.
But also, it's definitely cyclical because the more the program takes the kids away, the more the kids who are left behind are more likely to become depressed and commit suicide because their friends and family have been taken away, which possibly is the evil plan. I don't even know who the bad guy is or who started the program. Probably either a woman with very high heels and, a Karen haircut, or a bad scientist man. James follows Miller upstairs to do an intervention, and he thinks that it has worked. It does not consist of talking things out. It consisted of punching him. Also, though, once again, placing the burden of fixing your friends onto literal teenagers, and it should not be there. You, teenager who might be watching this, are not qualified, and it should not be your job to fix your friends. It might feel like it's your responsibility to help them. It might feel like there's no one else and it has to be you, but that's not true. You can help your friend by seeking out adults who can help your friend. It is not your responsibility to fix your friend's mental illnesses, especially your significant other. I wasn't sure when I was going to talk about this, and I'll probably talk about it more, but your significant other is not your therapist. Your significant other is not going to fix your mental health issues. Alright, I talked way too much that chapter. That was chapter 5, and I just kept yammering on. Anyway, I've got less than half an hour before my friends and I gather online to watch Merlin. That's fun. Hey everybody, I have been filming today, and so it is time to do a little filming of this. Chapter 6, onward we go. The other night I was thinking, like, is there anything about this book that I could say that I like? Because, you can't just critique things all the time. You should say what you like as well. I do believe that the main character and her boyfriend have a relationship. It's pretty codependent and probably not a terribly healthy relationship, but it is one, and I do believe that two teenagers in this situation could form this kind of relationship, so that is realistic. That's it. for now, but hey, I found something to praise, so. So Miller, doesn't want to go camping with them this weekend. And to be fair, I kind of don't blame him. They're an established couple who are very, very lovey-dovey, and he would be third-wheeling it real hard. But also, he's totally gonna either die or get taken away by the men in their white coats.
And I'll be happy to see those nice young men in their clean white coats, and they're coming to take me away.
Again, parents are apparently fine with kids going camping, a place where there's fire, where there are sharp things, where you could get lost, where your parents can't supervise you to make sure you're not getting depressed. Like, how is this okay? But you have to latch the windows in your school lest the kids throw themselves out. Apparently, she is significantly younger than James. The first time she went camping with her brother, James was there, and she was 12 and he was 16. So, like, there's a bigger age gap than I thought. But he's gonna age out of this suicide epidemic well before she does, and I'm curious how that's gonna work. Also, I don't know, something about a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old. Like, okay, we don't know that they get into a relationship right here, but, like, this is the first time that they meet, and she's, like, thinking about that fondly. And it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it says she was checking him out. She was 12. So she was 12 when she crushed on James for the first time. And now it's over 2 years later. I didn't know she was potentially 14. Like, it depends on what they mean by over 2 years. But 14? I feel even less okay with the codependence of their relationship now. Sometimes the things the author chooses to point out, like, I understand that occasional specificity is your friend. Be specific every now and then, it'll really make your writing pop. He's giving her a marshmallow and it says, holding one between his thumb and finger. Unless he's holding the marshmallow in a really weird way, you don't need to tell us that it's between his thumb and finger. That's how everybody holds a marshmallow. He's saying she looks good naked and she's 14. I'm getting skeezed out. Like, it's weird enough that I, as an adult, am reading the love story of teenagers, but she's 14! 14! After they have creepy sex, they do the thing again, where they cuddle and reassure each other that they will always be there for each other. James is here for her. Miller calls them on their drive back from camping. They went camping for several pages, and mostly it was just, they have sex, and then they do the thing that they've been doing this entire time. Cuddle and reassure each other. Why are children allowed to drive if the suicide rate is an epidemic? That's a super easy way to kill yourself. Just drive off a cliff. What? I do not understand this world, unless it's all fake. And even then, even if it is all fake, even if people are lying to the parents and something else is killing their children, why would the parents who believe it is suicide let their children drive?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
And we find out that while they were gone, Miller assaulted his ex-girlfriend. He went up to her and tried to force a kiss on her so she would remember. And now Miller has gotten his hands on some quick death, which is apparently really easy to get. Super fast-acting poison, I assume, because it's called quick death. Where he gets it from, I don't know, but I almost wonder if the program actually makes it available because they're trying to kill kids for some reason. Okay, apparently it takes 10 fucking minutes to work. Because he took it 10 minutes ago. I thought he hadn't taken it yet. And then they call 911 to try to save Miller, but I'm certain they're not going to because Miller is and was a red shirt.
He's dead.
Wait, so if you're 18, you're aged out from the program, but that means that James has to be aged out from the program because he has to be 18, right? Oh, good. Good. This line is damaging in a couple of ways. Important ways. So she starts to freak out because Miller is dead, and she's very upset about that. And then James slaps me. I gasp in a breath, snapped out of my hysteria as my cheek stings. Okay, so first of all, there's the surface part where he struck his girlfriend to snap her out of something. don't hit people if they're having emotions. What, from an author standpoint, here is where we go deeper. And one of the layers is snap out of my hysteria. Back in the day, more recently probably than it should be, any medical issues that women were having were blamed on hysteria. Women just had hysteria. We were hysterical. We couldn't have emotions. We couldn't have thoughts. We couldn't have problems. We couldn't have medical issues. We were just hysterical. Now, one of the cures was orgasms. So, like, feeling hysterical, have orgasms about it. But the fact that that is the word that is used compounds the terribleness of this situation, because a man is hitting a woman because she is having hysteria. Have we gone back in time? If the author does understand what she has written, I am upset with her for it. And if she doesn't, I'm still upset, but for a different reason. So now James freaks out. He's having some kind of episode, and he bails out of the car and just runs off. The book is trying really hard to make us understand how much he's going to miss Miller by being like, here are all the things we'll never do together again. But Miller was such a non-person and just such a total red shirt that the reader's like, I don't care.
Help. Police. Murder.
And she's worried about James because usually he would hug and hold her, but this time he slapped her. And she calls it hysteria again, by the way. Because women's emotions are irrational and hysterical. I know that's not really what the book is saying, but that there are connotations to the words that you write that you may not completely have a handle on, and that's why it's very important to have other readers maybe look at your book and see if that is a message that you want to get across, because that is a message that you will get across to some people. And we're going to be like, what are you doing? What are you trying to do? Is this book trying to do something with it? I feel like almost certainly not, judging by the skill level of the writing I have seen so far. The flip side of it is with a skilled author, they could be trying to do something with it. It's interesting to look deeper with books and the language that you choose to use in your writing and the different things that those things could mean. Am I making sense? Am I articulating this okay? I hope so. Also, apparently this neighborhood is just fucking deserted because James goes running off, and then she, drives to try to find him, gets to his house, and she hurtles out of the car and leaves the door hanging open. And there are no neighbors to be like, hey look, teenagers acting erratically in a world where suicide is a literal epidemic. That's concerning. Okay, and now we have some trigger warning for self-harm, because she gets to James, he's gone home and he's gone to his room, and he's carving the name into his arm because, he tattoos everyone's names onto him. But it seems like the depression virus may have gotten James now because he is really, really upset. And also he's, dead inside. So she deals with everything, and then she's like, she considers hiding all the knives in the house. And I'm like, why don't the parents hide all the knives in the house? Apparently the parents are just heavily medicated, though, because she goes to James's dad's room and just takes some of his medication and downers, I guess, and gives them to James. So apparently, somehow, probably through time travel, James is not 18 yet, even though we did the math before and that would be impossible. So time travel also confirmed in this universe.
It's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
She's like, I just have to keep him alive for 5 more months. Damn him, why did he have to time travel? Then they won't be able to take him away. I don't understand what happens when you turn 18. Do you just stop? Do you just stop having emotions? What? He's still gonna be sad over his friend's death, right? Or no?
What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules?
But now, of course, we were seeing the super damaging trope of you being responsible for your significant other's life, mental health, whatever. Before, he was kind of limping her along, and now she's like, okay, now it's up to me. I have to keep him alive. You're 14. There's no way. You are not. You're about as far as they get from being a mental health professional, 14-year-old girl. she doesn't think, oh, I need to go get an adult, I need to get some help with this, I need to ask somebody else for help. She just goes, I need to limp him along. Now, maybe that is somewhat realistic, because when you're a teenager, you're often not thinking clearly, and you might believe that, yes, you do have the responsibility for this. But in a book that is for teenagers to read, it's not super great to be encouraging that kind of thinking. Okay, another hint to her having been there when her brother died. She almost went with him, I guess. So I'm guessing we're going to see more of that shortly, and like more flashbacks and stuff about how her brother died. Good, great. Suicidal teenagers all the way down. That's what we love to see. Anyway, guys, I'll see you for the next chapter. Quick, let me explain. No, it's too much. Let me sum up. These are my patrons. Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Artemis, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Irene, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, Sarah, Anna W, Anna C, Light Julie, OS, Hidden Glade, Persephone, Kit, Lennox, and Rainfall. Whew, I hope you were paying attention. Those are some awesome patrons you just heard about.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.